We're back on the championship trail as we head north of the border. We're at Knockhill, our annual visit to the Scottish circuit for rounds 19, 20 and 21 of the championship. And it's Ash Sutton who comes here as the championship leader. He comes here as well as the lap record holder at this 1.27 mile long circuit that first hosted the British Touring Car Championship way back in 1992. And it's always given us some great racing ever since. Much of the talk has been about the weather this morning. It's been a wet and dry day. In the championship, the talk is about this battle between Ash Sutton and Tom Ingram. 6 points between them when we arrived at Croft, 6 points between them when we left Croft. Colin Turkington is third ahead of Jake Hill, Dan Camish fifth ahead of independent leader Josh Cook. Dan Rowbottom is seventh and Adam Morgan is in eighth spot. So we've had another downpour in the last half an hour and it stopped raining and the sun is trying to break through and therefore the road is drying. This qualifying session is another of those which will have the top 10 showdown, so it's going to get more and more dramatic as we go through. But Tim, in these conditions, the weather makes it an absolute lottery.
Well, it makes it a lottery, but it makes it doubly important just to be out on the track on the right tyres at the right time. It feels like all we've talked about as the main subject of discussion over the last 30 years here at Knockhill has been the weather, but it's a fabulous circuit. We always get a great welcome, and I'm really looking forward to this quali session.
The teams are in something of a quandary knowing what to do with tyres. The fans are ready to go. The teams making their way into the pit lane. We're running slightly behind schedule at Knockhill because of a red flag in the Porsche qualifying session. And of course they are running on a very wet road because they had a downpour just really as the session was underway. So there the teams are ready. But as Tim rightly says, a banker lap is going to be important early on. And then you need to make sure you're in that top 10 where it's going to be, one hopes, at its driest. The direction from where the weather is coming looks brighter. Now, Rob Huff is back in the British Touring Car Championship. He is taking over one of the team hard cars for the weekend. He said, well, I was either going to watch it on TV at home, so I might as well come and be part of it when the phone rang from Tony Gillam. It's great to have Rob back in the championship. And earlier on in the day, Huffy talked to Steve Ryder.
Rob Huff, welcome back to the BTCC and welcome to Knockhill. Have you just sort of slipped into the old routine easily this morning?
I mean, I wish it was that easy. First of all, thank you very much. Great to be back. You know, BTCC has been a huge passion of mine for my whole career. I started here in 2004, which was the last time I was up here in Bonnie, Scotland at this track. So it's not changed a great deal, but obviously the cars have changed massively, even from when I drove the one off at Silverstone in 2017. Obviously full hybrid system, which takes a bit of getting used to. A lot to learn in 2 half-hour practice sessions. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, a bit of wet weather, a bit of Scotland, and a great touring car to drive. So I'm very happy at the moment.
I know, a wonderful, glamorous, demanding venue, but how does this... how have you managed to sort of shoehorn this into your schedule? What is your schedule over the next few weeks?
I mean, we're quite busy. Off to Uruguay on Tuesday for the next round of the World Tour, and then straight from Uruguay to Argentina. Then back to the UK. Let's see how this weekend goes, but you might see me again in the future. There's possibilities of doing the last 2 rounds as well, before I then head off to Australia for 2 more rounds of the World Tour, and then the final in Macau. But yeah, to be back here at BTCC, you know, it's a great paddock. It's a paddock I very much grew up in. Lots of familiar faces, and yeah, I mean, this weekend's very much, you know, sort of just see how we get on and move forward from there.
Through all those glamorous world travel, you will cherish the memory of Knockhill in the rain.
It's definitely a bit warmer where we're going, that's for sure.
But just give us an idea. I mean, the prestige of the British Touring Car Championship compared to the World Championship. Give us an idea of how those things sit together. I mean, what would be the greatest achievement for you? I mean, winning the World Championship is something. How about winning the British Touring Car Championship?
Yeah, like I say, I mean, I started here. I was very, very lucky. Right place, right time. Did a great job. Obviously, with the SEAT Cupra Championship back in 2003, that obviously boosted me into British touring cars, which is where I, you know, from when I was a kid, I wanted to be. I've always loved BTCC, and you know, did that year obviously with RML. They ran the car. And then I got the opportunity to go to the World Series with them. I had a wonderful 8 years with them. Obviously won a World Championship, so that box is definitely ticked. Definitely don't have a BTC Championship in my cabinet, and it would be something I'd obviously love to achieve. You know, I've always watched the BTCC. I've always tried to be involved, come and see you guys when I can. And yeah, to be on, let's say, home soil, you know, I've spent the last 20 years of my life travelling around the world, had amazing memories, great, you know, racing, very warm conditions compared to here. Very rarely does it ever rain. So, you know, definitely a return to BTCC is something I'd love to do.
So it's a box that needs to be ticked. Have you made any firm plans for 2024 yet?
No, not yet. At the moment, I'm with Audi in the World Series. As we know, they're closing the doors at the end of this year to very much focus on Formula One. So at the moment, the door is open for next year. So let's see what we can work on.
Yeah, you've got to prove something today, though, first of all.
I'd like to think in the last 20 years I've proved quite a lot to enough people, but, you know, I'd love an opportunity to come back.
You have indeed. Great to have you back in the championship.
So cars making their way from the paddock down into the pit lane with some of the rather bedraggled marshals standing watching all of this. The marshals at the hairpin are hard at work just sweeping the circuit, and because they've been out in the elements all day, they're as wet as an otter's pocket, which, just for the avoidance of doubt, is one notch down from being wetter than a mermaid's flannel, which is if it was still raining. But for the moment, even though it's looking decidedly dark out there, it is not quite as bad as it was half an hour ago.
Yes, David has his phrase book out, so with this weather you can expect a plethora of David Addison sayings this weekend, folks. But let's just, a word from me about Huff. It's good to see him back. He's such a familiar name to British race fans. It's incredible to think that he only has done one full season in the British Touring Car Championship, which was as a result of winning that Seat Cupra scholarship prize, and of course he then transitioned straight into the World Championship. But since then he's made that one appearance at Silverstone in the Power Maxed Astra, had a second place there, was immediately competitive. No reason to think he can't do that again now. The cars are a little different, yeah, with the hybrid, but you know, fundamentally they're very much the same. And in the TCR World Tour, he's driving front-wheel drive cars all the time, quite a similar type car. I see no reason why he couldn't be competitive this weekend.
And of course, that Seat season with Jason Plato all those years ago. Now, Jake Hill is another man to watch because he, of course, earlier on in the day was fastest in free practice 2. Ricky Collard was quickest in FP1 when it was really wet. Jake fastest in free practice 2. And on the back of that, he spoke earlier on to Louise Goodman.
Jake, we've had an absolute clean sweep of Napa poles so far this season. Is this the weekend that's going to change, and how confident are you that you're the man that can make it change?
Yes, let's do it. I'm feeling very confident, to be fair, Lou. I absolutely love it here. You know, I got pole by one of the biggest margins ever last year in the rocket ship that we had. So this time it's Laserbeamer's turn to try and take that pole, and it'd be nice to try and, you know, knock them off that pole and get one back here at one of my favourite circuits.
I was chatting with Ash earlier, and he's saying, listen, this is going to favour the rear-wheel drive cars. Just tell us a little bit about why.
I think, to be honest, it's just the amount of traction we get. You know, I mean, it's weird. We didn't really see it at Alton. You know, we actually was pretty terrible overall, but here the car just really floats so well over all the curbs, and you get really good traction, good bite. So I'm hopeful that that can happen again in qualifying. It's been good so far for me this morning, so let's see.
What about this weather? I had my sunglasses out 10 minutes ago, but you know, we're speaking a few minutes ahead of qualifying. It's just coming down again, isn't it?
I know, yeah, it's forever changing. I mean, we're very close to qualifying now, but it can change so quickly. Depending on how hard it rains now, which obviously it is, it's you know, it could be gone again in 15 minutes. So we've got to just do whatever we can in the moment and just keep going with it.
But how does this change your approach to the session?
You don't. You just fully commit and just go for it.
Lick it and send it. Have fun out there.
Thanks, Lou.
So, which of the Napa Fords are we tipping for pole position then this week?
I think we've stopped playing that game. But look, if anyone could do it, it is Jake. Last year there were 4 BMWs in the top 5 in qualifying. It is a BMW favourite circuit, and Jake is very good round here. He was quick in the wet sessions, both wet sessions, as you said, topping the second one. But we're looking at changeable conditions, which has never been the best for BMW. I mean, the weather, we always look to the weather and where it comes from, which is above the hill with the pylons on the top, and it does look clear. It dries up fairly quickly here. If we get onto slicks, don't forget they're racing on the soft tyre this weekend. That's the prime tyre. The option tyre is actually the medium, so they'll do 2 races if it's dry on the soft. The soft tyre is very good for the BMW. So if it dries out, I think they could top that Napa domination of pole position.
That's a bold prediction.
There were a lot of ifs in that.
There were, and a few coulds I noticed as well. Just to remind you, in terms of the hybrid allocation for qualifying as to who has got what, it is 1 second a lap for Ash Sutton, 3 for Tom Ingram, 5 seconds per lap for Colin Turkington, and 7 for Jake Hill. 9 for Dan Camish, 11 for Josh Cook, 13 for Dan Rowbottom, and everybody else has 15 seconds. But of course, there are these different speeds at which it can be deployed. So the first part of qualifying is about not being slow. It's trying to be in that top 10 and being safe.
Yeah, but because that's a moving goalpost in terms of track conditions, you don't know where you're safe. You could be safe 5 minutes from the end, and then the track conditions could improve and you could drop out that top 10. So it requires a really good sort of communication from engineers watching lap times, drivers judging how quickly it dries, to be out there at the right time. Of course, no one's had slicks on yet either. No one.
And we're talking about the road drying. I mean, it could, of course, have another downpour, and all bets are off then. So, yes.
But I have the weather watch. Forget your apps.
Right.
Just look to the top of the hill at Knockhill. If there's one thing that the last 30 years have taught me, it is look at the hill, don't look at anything else.
OK, well, we can see the top of the hill, which means...
It's not raining.
And it's about to rain. Yes,
Probably.
Yes. That's what the circuit is like at the moment. The marshals have been out sweeping some of the standing water away, but I mean, it's much, much better now than it was a quarter of an hour ago when the Porsches were paddling.
Yeah, I mean, the Porsches had their qualifying session. It was completely dry at the start. They ran for a good 10 minutes completely dry. That's when the pole times were set in Porsches. But then it rained. But in fact, although the Porsches have been here testing on Wednesday and on Friday, they had dry conditions. So a lot of the Porsches elected to stay out on their wets and get a feel for the track in case it's wet tomorrow. So they've done a fairly good job of clearing a bit of water off the line.
Quick word about track limits, curbs, resurfacing, all in one conversation, because track limits are always an issue, but the drivers are talking about a bit of resurfacing work and the curbs and where to hit them and where not.
Basically, there are 2 new curbs, one on the inside of turn 1, which becomes a launching ramp if you hit it, and one on the chicane, the right-hand part of the chicane. We're not sure yet whether the cars will be able to go over that in the dry, because they haven't tried it yet. The reason their curbs have been put in and they're higher is that the track's been resurfaced twice since the curbs were originally put there, lifting the actual track level by some 80 millimetres. So the curbs had to be replaced. As far as track limits are concerned, there used to be 3 places. Turn 3, exit of McIntyre's, exit of the chicane and Clark. But now they're only limiting it the exit of the chicane and Clark. So those are the areas drivers need to watch. But they haven't tested those yet because they've only run in the wet, and you don't really test the limits there.
Right.
So it could be a journey of discovery on track limits.
And it's not going to be instant because the road is still not dry. Out come the Napa Fords, which you will notice are running in this tartan livery for the weekend and heading their way down through Duffer's Dip towards McIntyre's, and a chance for them to explore what the grip level may or may not be like as you look at Sam Osborne in number 77, whose father Pete Osborne has done so much for Motorbase over the last couple of years and really made it this current touring car powerhouse.
Yeah, very much so. The livery to reflect their involvement with Jackie Stewart's dementia charity, and fine work by Napa this weekend.
Aidan Moffat looking for good results on home soil. It was here that he made his debut, 10 years ago. He's been in the championship, but he's been a race winner, a pole position winner as well in the past, goes through the chicane. The other element of all of this that they've got to cope with, of course, with water on the road and spray, it's actually now a blinding sun when you head towards it at certain parts of the track. So it's a real test.
It is a test. The sun's quite high at the moment. I don't think that particularly will be a concern. It's more the track conditions. And as you can see, everybody out on wets at the moment, and the track's still quite wet.
A couple of other things just to tick off the list. Gearbox change for Nick Halstead, who's done precious little in free practice, and George Gamble was having an engine change, and the Speedworks team a little bit stressed to make sure that that was going to be done on time. So we need to keep an eye for number 42 Toyota to see how long it is before that gets into the session. The Toyotas, the BMWs, amongst the cars that run Neil Brown Engineering developed engines. And a word about Neil Brown, who we very sadly lost last week, who was a tremendous engine builder, whether it was for single-seater racing cars or touring cars, had tremendous success, and somebody of whom you've never heard a bad word.
No, a great loss to the sport and the BTCC paddock, especially so soon after losing Steve Neal as well, Dynamics boss, of course, in this category. Neil Brown so closely associated with Honda, all responsible for the engines for all 6 championships Dynamics won, but also another 3 with Colin Turkington and BMW, and Neil Brown engines responsible for 10 of the cars on the grid currently.
Richard Dasson, Neil's great mate, here with his Fortec team in British F4. That's a team I'm sure that would want to win this weekend to honour Neil Brown, and you'll see a tribute to him on the BMWs as well. So Jake Hill, you're looking at, comes out of the hairpin, this long climb, and we've been talking about this in previous years with the BTCC at Knockhill, but go wide at the hairpin, you lose all that momentum that you need to haul you up the hill. So that's the one corner you can't afford a mistake.
Yeah, a couple of lines, different lines in the wet, but they're all trying to dry out that racing line, aren't they? So they can get onto slicks as soon as possible. Here's Ricky Collins, but very wet on the entry to that, which is going to be a difficult one if they do. If the track dries out, but there's still that wet patch because of water running off the grass, that's going to make your braking very difficult and traction difficult coming off the corner.
So Ricky Collard sets the benchmark time, and he has done a 55.3. Well, in FP1, which was properly wet, he was the fastest on a 56.3.
But look, he's got some flapping bodywork on the left front corner, so he's already hit the pile of tyres that he's coming up to next on the left-hand side of the chicane just there. He's clipped that already. Rob Huff in the pits. He should be out on track. Not sure why.
Yeah, he's done an outlap and come back in.
They didn't use any new tyres, actually, in free practice. They just ran on old tyres. So I'm expecting this to be the first sort of run on new tyres. Maybe he's just waiting a few minutes for the track to dry a bit because he may not have a lot of tyres. That team obviously running under budget considerations.
And overseeing Rob's car is Barry Plowman, who went away from the team for one weekend at Croft to One Motorsport, but has returned to Team Hard, and I think looking forward to working with Rob.
Yeah, I think very much so. Yeah, musical chairs once again between drivers and engineers.
Yeah. And that's Ash Sutton, who can attack the chicane curbs, and he saved it. Tim's grimacing here, but there's nothing wrong with that. Look, he's pointing in the right direction.
Well, I was grimacing initially because he was so close to the tyre stack on the left. Then he flung the car across the curb on the right, nearly lost the rear end. But that's Ash Sutton, that's how he drives. So watch firstly how close he is to this tyre stack left. The car's already on edge. Oh, he touches it. They flings the car to the right over that curb. Actually, it took the curb very well, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think lots of people will have seen that and be quite interested in the car's poise. Stephen Jelly here, he had a front left puncture in FP2, and Stephen Jelly for the BMW squad, they're making his climb now up towards the chicane, and the lap time disallowing column is being started. The first one being Daryl De Leon, number 18 for Team Hard. He's had a lap time disallowed.
Yeah, the car's not using the curbs particularly here, especially on the exit of the chicane, because they're just slippery and you get no traction off them. I suppose you could argue that shows they can drive around without going over the curbs. But
Right, so Colin Turkington is on a slowish lap at the moment as the circuit starts to get busy. The only one that's not out is Rob Huff as yet. He's out now, in fact. Yes, he's just rejoined the session, so he's back on track. Let's have a look at Rob Huff as he comes then now up out of the hairpin. Let's have a look at Knockhill on board the Cupra.
Pulling through the gears as he comes up. Drivers tend to go to the middle of the road there and then cut across to the pit exit just there. Down 2 gears into turn 1, just float it over that. Use all the curb there. He hasn't forgotten how to drive Knockhill, has he? He's right on the perfect line there. Just out to the edge, down through the dip. Car's moving around quite a bit. This is where a driver makes where he's very respectful of the curbs at the moment. I guess he's probably building up to a big push lap, but he certainly was slow and taking a gentle line through there. Through Clark, the third corner that's completely blind. There are 3 blind corners here at Knockhill, and then the run down to the final braking area. Quite bumpy on the brakes. Still that wet patch. It's drying out a little bit, but look, you need to get the steering lock off. He does as quickly as he can, so he gets maximum front-wheel drive traction up the straight.
As he comes then up towards the timing line, breaks the beam, and Rob Huff goes 22nd, 55.603. Knockhill, like many circuits these days, has the start and finish lines in different place. So the timing line is coming up the hill out of the hairpin, whereas the start line is pretty much at the top of the hill. So you'll just see the timekeeper's hut near the pit in approach. There's George Gamble, who is now in the session quite clearly with this engine change. So well done, Speedworks Motorsport. They've got the work done with enough of the session to go. Dan Camish looking rapid behind him, but now stuck in traffic. And we've had another lap time taken away, and this time it goes from Sam Osborne.
Yeah. Camish got a free run through there, actually. Oh, and he's looking for some wet patches to cool the tyres already. So he can obviously feel them starting, the tread block starting to move about as they overheat. So we may get a car on slicks before the end of this session. 20 minutes to go. It's quite possible.
Tom Ingram has had a lap time taken off him, so the order is Collard, Camish, Sutton, Andrew Watson fourth on a return to Knockhill, Jake Hill fifth, then it's Ingram, Cook, Taylor Smith, Butcher and Turkington. And having said all of that, now Josh Cook loses a lap time for the dreaded track limits offences.
Well, Ronan Pearson is an instructor here at Silverstone, so he probably knows his way. Silverstone, what am I talking about? Here at Knockhill. Thank you, David. Great. I don't know where that one came from. But yeah, he's an instructor at Knockhill, so he probably knows these conditions. Was that somebody going straight on? Looked like it could have been.
It was a Toyota going deep, you're right, but it survived.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Ronan Pearson.
Yeah, we expect great things.
We do, yes. Here or Silverstone, which is where we will go next but one after Donington. He says, trying to help Tim out of his hole. But, yes, very different sort of circuit, this. And as you look there at Andrew Watson charging downhill, he is the fastest. He's done a 55.223. Andrew Watson then, who went well at Donington at the start of the year, which, of course, was another rain-affected weekend. And reminding himself what Knockhill is all about.
Well, I mean, there's a new award this weekend by Knockhill Circuit. They're going to make an award for the pole position. It's named after John Cleland. It'd be appropriate if it went to a Vauxhall driver, wouldn't it? Although, ironically, John Cleland never had a pole here at Knockhill, so perhaps a wrongly named award there. I can only suggest, you know.
Who do you think it should have gone to?
Well, David Leslie there's a David Leslie award for the fastest lap tomorrow.
Right.
He ironically did have a pole here in the very first meeting in 1992.
Discuss. Now, this is Rory Butcher's rather limited view as he hustles on in the Toyota, and at the moment Rory is ninth. There's a bit more optimism in the team perhaps this weekend, and apart from the fact that it looks rather misted up inside, it's not the camera, because if you look to the side, there is visibility. That looks like condensation and how difficult it is. Andrew Watson has had a lap time disallowed, so now Ash Sutton is the fastest.
Oh, that was someone taking the wide line to start a lap. That's a normal line for Ricky Collard before you start a lap. You go in very wide and get a cutback. So, as I was mentioning when we were on board with Rod Huff, you get the steering lock wound off quicker and you get better traction off the corner.
As downhill, still with that flapping bodywork and lots of curb taking. That's quite brave in these conditions because they're going to be slippy.
It is, but everybody's using that line, so it's dried out probably more than any other curb on the circuit. In fact, he's fairly judicious use of all the curbs. Look how well that car goes over the curb, so clearly the cars can use it.
So Ash Sutton is the fastest. As you look at Josh Cook there, he's seventh fastest, having had not only a lap time taken off him, but also a driving standards flag. Now Sutton has lost a lap time for track limit offences. The list is growing as Cook hustles on. Now Josh is at the end of his first sector, and there was no improvement there, so he's going to be in traffic. Rory Butcher just up ahead of him. Now Dan Camish has had a lap taken off him, so Sutton, Watson, Collard, Camish, Hill, Ingram is currently the top six.
Yeah, I spoke to several drivers before this session. They were unsure quite how the track limit would be policed because they hadn't explored those limits in free practice.
Well, I know now. Ian Watson and Dave White, his deputy, the clerk to the course, keeping an eye on all of this, plus, of course, the reports that come back from the observers on post out around the circuit. So Ash Sutton is the fastest by only 61 thousandths. The top 10, which becomes, as Josh Cook goes faster but stays seventh, the top 10 which becomes ever more of interest is Sutton, Watson, Collard, Camish, Hill, Ingram, Cook, Taylor Smith, Butcher and Rowbottom at the moment. Interesting names that currently miss out: Turkington, Morgan and amongst others, Huff.
Yeah, but those guys know that the conditions are going to improve. There's only 6/10 between those top 10 cars, and we've still got 17 minutes to go. And your latest Harvey weather update from the hill still looks dry and cloudy and sunny.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Dan Rowbottom and George Gamble have also lost lap times, and improvements not that obvious to find, although Jack Butel was an improver on his last lap, and there are sector improvements coming from Dan Lloyd and again from Jack Butel. There is Stephen Jelly, 17th, not an improver on this lap. Whoops, big slide there, but well saved, Stephen.
Yeah, nice to see a car power sliding a bit, isn't it?
Yes.
This is Dan Lloyd coming down to the chicane. That's quite dry on the braking area. It's just that wet patch on the apex, but there are clearly developing dry patches on the circuit.
Right, Tom Ingram has done a personal best in the first sector, so there he is, the reigning champion. Second in this year's championship behind Ash Sutton as he comes down through the hairpin then, so he's got to try to find just over 3/10 of a second to get himself up to the pointy end of the grid. Here he comes then, 6th at the moment. Ting will break the beam, and as he does so, the lap is to 56.321, a little bit slower than it had been earlier. Ash Sutton was the fastest, albeit only by 61 thousandths in the pits, and Ingram is absolutely on the limit now.
This is a flying lap if ever I saw one. That was a beautiful shot of the whole car drifting, four-wheel slide into turn one. He's really attacking this lap, isn't he? Got a little bit of traffic ahead. Could take a bit more curb there if he really wanted to. We've seen other cars do it. Look how dry it is there on the entry to Clark. Here's where you mustn't run wide. That was perfect. I think he didn't explore the limits there at all. This lap, he didn't set a personal best in the first sector, and he hasn't in this second. I think he's almost aborted this lap.
Yeah, it's been good to watch, but it's not delivered in terms of the time in the sectors. As you say, he's, I think, going to head up the hill, possibly for pit in. Yes, he is. So we're at the halfway point, 15 minutes still to go. As Nick Halstead there goes across the line. This in replay was absolutely on the limit going through Duffer's Dip. Tom Ingram.
That was fantastic. Loved it. Loved seeing that. I think the drivers have a delta on their lap time on the dashboard, so he knows whether he's up or down on his best lap. He probably saw halfway through the lap that he was well down, and that's why he decided to abort the lap.
Rob Huff's going rather slowly. Now Huffy is 24th, and this is an out lap, so looking for space. He still has an issue.
No, I think he might be on slicks. I think he might be on slicks and just exploring it. I just caught a glimpse of the sidewall, which looked white to me, which is a soft, dry tyre. So I believe he's on slicks.
It'll be interesting to see where that tipping point is as to when the road starts to work for him.
Yeah,
he's not there yet. Yeah. So Rob Huff on the slick tyres. Yeah, bits of the circuit drier than others. That section that we're on now looks drier than it does sort of Duffer's Dip McIntyre's area.
It does, but the thing about being on he probably is thinking, look, I'm not going to get in the top 10 just if everything stays equal. So why don't I get onto slicks early? I'll have more temperature in those tyres and I'd better feel for the conditions in this last remaining 14 minutes than anyone else. So it's a good decision, I think. He's got the experience to feel the car. Look at the oversteer there, because there's no temperature really in the rears. He's just feeling his way into this, hoping that in that last 14 minutes, hopefully they've got enough fuel on board to last that period, or they're going to be stuck. But I think it's a good decision.
Indeed so. Right, Adam Morgan here is 14th fastest. We had an improvement last time from Ronan Pearson. Also an improvement from George Gamble, who's lost 2 lap times, and if that one stands, then it should put him up to 24th. And Nick Halstead, who's at the foot of the times, also went quicker a lap ago. So Adam Morgan still needing to hustle on to get himself into that magic 10, and the first sector is down. So although the road is drying, this lap does not look like an improvement as yet.
Well, there are sections of track that are completely dry now, so it's really a case of working. That's wet tyres at the moment, but I think they're coming off. And I saw one of the other BMWs already on the slicks next to him. They're just waiting till they feel they can go out and make the most of those tyres. The soft tyre on the BMW does come in quickly, and in comes Morgan for the same result. There we go.
So slicks now. Rob Huff has started the trend. So those wets are coming off, and slicks will go on. You can't mix and match anymore. You've got to commit to wets or slicks. Combination. Right, so how is Rob Huff getting on? Well, as we've been saying, the road is getting drier. Adam Morgan, that we were looking at, has had another lap taken off him for track limit abuses, and now Rob Huff confident enough to go slightly offline to do some overtaking. Further proof the road is getting drier.
This will be interesting following the car through this corner just to see the wet bit. That's drying out well as well. Look, the car had good turn in there and good grip off the corner. It's coming soon. It's definitely coming soon.
A pit stop comes instead. So what's this for? Tyre cross?
It could be for a tyre cross, yeah. Could well be for a tyre cross.
So down the pit road he comes. As Josh Cook is also on slicks, we think. And there he is in the One Motorsport with Starline Racing Civic, and a big twitch there as he goes into the chicane. So he's found the wet part of the road.
Yeah, this is the drier section here where you can load up that left-hand side and the rears a little bit more. But he's still being very ginger.
11.5 minutes of the session to go. More and more people venturing back out on their slick tyres. Josh Cook down towards the hairpin then, so he's going to go for a push lap next time around.
Well, I'm not sure he is. I think he's just left his lights on. But he certainly didn't look to be in a really pushing state. But he's going for it. But I don't think this will be. It's pretty aggressive into turn one. Yeah, pretty aggressive into turn one. But I'd have expected him. Oh.
That's Rob Huff in the pit lane.
It is,
because they camp out further down the pit road. That tyre stack of their tyres, not a tyre wall. Panic ye not. Right, this is Josh Cook, who is pushing on, but he's still discovering where the damp patches are. And in the first sector of this lap, Cookie not as quick as he would like to be.
Yeah, it'll come though. He's coming fast. We've still got 10 minutes to go. I absolutely predict that the quickest times will come on slicks by the end of this session.
You still see your hill.
Yes.
It's getting a bit darker over the top of it.
It's getting darker, but those aren't the rainy sort of clouds.
Oh, are they not?
No, they're just the shadowy ones.
Right. Down the pit lane, another of the Team Hard Cupras to go on the slicks. Ash Sutton, remember, is the fastest thus far. 10 minutes to go now. 61 thousandths of a second, the margin, as you go on board with Aidan Moffat, who is 13th. So he is one of those drivers nearly into that magic top 10, but not quite. And Aidan Moffat is 26 thousandths behind Chilton, who in turn is a 10th behind Turkington. Now Turkington is 11th, and he's only 8 thousandths slower, 8 thousandths of a second slower than Dan Rowbottom. So just outside the top 10, it's incredibly competitive indeed. Josh Cook, personal best, sector 1. A personal best sector 1 from Dan Rowbottom as well. So now I think we've got to that point where the slicks are going to work. This is it. We were just one lap in advance with Cookie. Personal best and an absolute best then. So now everybody will be fully aware slicks is the way to go. Here comes Josh Cook up towards the line. The time to beat is a 55.162, and as he breaks the beam, he's into the 54s. 54.526. Tremendous effort, but Dan Rowbottom has not done yet either, because he's done exactly the same. A personal best and then an absolute best. Robo has dropped to 11th, but he's about to fight back as he comes across the line and goes quickest of all on a 54.072. That's 4 tenths quicker than anybody else.
Well, we're going to see an absolute plethora of green personal bests and purple fastest of everybody's sectors now, as everyone gets their slicks up to speed, and it's only going to get quicker and quicker over the last 8 minutes. We're in for a really fun 8 minutes now. It's almost like an 8-minute qualifying session.
So now Turkington up to 3rd, but then he's demoted by Rob Huff, who has gone 3rd fastest. Rowbottom, Cook, Huff, Turkington, Sutton, Jade Edwards into the top 6. Here comes Rory Butcher, who is down to 14th, but this should be 2nd fastest. Rory Butcher goes 2nd, 3 tenths down on Rowbottom. So this is still the fastest driver, and he's done 2 absolute bests on this lap alone. So Rowbottom up towards the line. Now one of those absolute bests has just been taken away by Rob Huff. Rowbottom should be able to go yet quicker. 53.167. It's now faster by over a second. But what about Huffy? Because he has done an absolute best within the first sector. Welcome back to the BTCC, Rob Huff. Here he comes, down to the hairpin.
And bear in mind, he had not turned a single dry lap in this car in free practice. Quite incredible how quickly, he's always been a versatile driver, but how quickly he's got on top of the car and of the conditions, and he goes second quickest at the moment. He'll be wanting some more rain now,
Yes.
won't he?
And with no testing, don't forget this is the first time he's even driven the car today. What else might we expect? Jade Edwards has gone third quickest ahead of Dan Camish, ahead of Colin Turkington. Could we get, by the end of the session, 7 minutes away? Can we keep Jade in the top 10? We've got a lap time disallowed for Rory Butcher now in Toyota number 6. Right, Rowbottom is only 0.2 up on Josh Cook now, who has gone second. Stephen Jelly goes fourth. Jack Butel into the top 10 as well.
Camish has a fastest of everybody in the second sector. He's coming up to the line, and he goes quickest now. Just 69 thousandths quicker than teammate Rowbottom.
And Camish with 9 seconds elapsed, 13 of Rowbottom. So the Tartan Ford from Napa Racing of Dan Camish then finds its way through the traffic, gets all sideways, he's off the road, he's heading for something, is he? He's heading for gravel if he's not careful, but Dan just about saved it, but he's brought a whole load of muck onto the road, and he's done a bit of damage to the front of the car.
Yeah, crucially, that damage could stop him going any quicker for the rest of the session. If everybody else goes quicker, look, he lost the rear as he goes. He had to straighten it out, and the digging into the grass is what's done the damage. They may not be able to repair that. If he can't get out again in the last few minutes, he could lose that time very quickly if everyone else goes quicker, and they still need to repair it, even if he does, to run in the top 10 shootout. So he's given the Napa Racing guys a lot of work to do.
In a very short space of time. It's only really when you go off the road that you realise how slippery it is, because that was just like a toboggan, wasn't it?
He had no chance of saving that, did he? But and also, because they work out of the pits here and the team is further in the garage, they may not have the spares down.
That's true. Can I just also mention, Aaron Taylor-Smith is now the fastest. So by 22 thousandths, the Irish driver ATS Aaron Taylor-Smith is ahead of Camish, ahead of Rowbottom. Jade Edwards is up to 4th. There she is. Tremendous effort this from Jade, and there are 5.5 minutes still to go. So where's teammate Josh Cook in all of this? He is the fastest because he's just gone quicker, 52.420. So Cook, Taylor-Smith, Camish, Rowbottom, Edwards, Turkington, Huff, Morgan, Jelly, Sam Osborne was in the top 10, but every car that crosses the line changes all of this. Moffat has lost a lap time, Watson's an improver, Morgan and Sutton are improvers as well, and all of a sudden Rob Huff is out of the top 10. He's dropped to 11th.
Yeah, just like that, he was 7th last time I looked, and that was only a few seconds ago. It shows how quickly the times are tumbling. Camish is still in that group. He's still 4th quickest. No, I say that, he's 5th. He's tumbling, but he did that time before the track was as quick as it is now. Oh,
that's Nick Halstead getting himself out of the gravel. Tom Ingram's now gone the fastest by 0.2 of a second, as Dan Camish's Ford is about to have some repairs done to it. Dan Mayo, the championship coordinator, comes to have a look at it and talk to the team, and this is Nick Halstead's dramas coming out of the chicane rather than into the chicane, but with that wet gravel compacting he was able to bounce out the other side.
Yeah, he reacted quickly enough to sort of keep some throttle on and keep driving it through. Now there doesn't seem to be a lot of urgency going on down there at the Napa Racing team. I'd have thought they'd be pulling that front bumper off or getting to work on it very quickly.
Josh Cook, absolute best, first sector. So the One Motorsport Honda Civic now heading down towards the hairpin. Personal best in the second. He has got to find 0.208 of a second to go ahead of Ingram. And can he find it? Well, it's not a massive margin, but it's hard in the ultra-competitive world of the British Touring Car Championship. Up to the line comes Cook, saving some hybrid for the end of the lap at 52.207, puts him fastest by 6 thousandths of a second.
But what we must remember, folks, is this is not the grid. This is not the grid apart from 11th down, because this is merely qualified for the top 10 shootout, which comes up after this. So it's not a grid for the top 10, it's just being in that group.
So, Tom Ingram, absolute best in the first sector. It's all about timing, isn't it? This trying to be the last man across the line, or the last driver across the line on this drying road. Up towards the timing line now comes Ingram as a lap time is taken off Stephen Jelly. Is this going to put Ingram at the top? His middle sector was down, but he's still the fastest. 51.991, first driver into the 51s, then that's the best lap of the day. And he's quicker by 0.216 of a second.
Camish has slipped to 8th, 9th quickest. I don't think he's going to make the top 10. Yeah, he's out of the car, so I don't think his time will hold for the remaining 3 minutes.
And the man behind him is Rob Huff, who is the man on the bubble at the moment. So Huff needs to go back out if he can. He's out there. This is on board with Rob Huff as he comes out of McIntyre, grabs a gear up to the chicane now.
This is where a drive makes such a difference. He's taking a bit more curve now. The car didn't land that well, so he lost a bit of time coming off it. I think he can actually gain a bit more time there if he attacks it a little bit more. Ooh, that was close to track limits on the exit of Clark. Coming down now to the final hairpin. What is his times, his sector times?
So he's up in sector 1, but he lost time in sector 2. He's got Josh Cook behind him. Cook did an absolute best in the first sector. Both of these drivers looking to improve. Cook's second is in that magic 10. Huff is not as yet, and as he goes across the line, that's not an improvement, although Huff is now on the same time as Camish, so he's still outside the top 10, but Huff has equalled Camish to the 1,000th.
Yeah, and Huff is, although Cook is flashing his lights on him, Huff wasn't having anything of it. He wanted to complete that lap, didn't he?
Rory Butcher goes fastest, 51.790 on very much home soil. Of course, it's the family-owned circuit. Rory goes fastest. An absolute best sector 1 from Tom Ingram. An absolute best middle sector from Ash Sutton. This session is not done yet. There's a spinner ahead of Butcher. It's a BMW, I think, that's gone around approaching the chicane. Rory presses on. Stephen Jelly is the man that's off the road. Kind of the same thing that affected Camish, but he's gone off the road rather more severely. This is through Clark's, and Rory Butcher the fastest, but he's down in the first sector of this lap. Sutton has gone second.
Turkington's in, Hill's in. Their fastest lap put them 5th and 6th. I told you they'd be waiting till the end, but they nearly got usurped by a yellow flag and potentially an end of session flag for Stephen Jelly, their teammate, spinning.
So Rory Butcher looks like, with 38 thousandths of a second as a margin, he's going to top the times at the end of Q1 because we're into the last minute. This is Dan Rowbottom. He needs to get himself back in, and he's down in the first sector of this lap. We've had an improvement just from Dan Lloyd to go 9th, and there's damage on the front of Rowbottom's car, look, so he's hit somebody or something.
I think it's somebody more like. I think this time won't count. This time won't count.
No, and 45 seconds to go. Now, are they going to give them another 5 minutes?
They may not.
Discretion of the clerk.
I thought that might be a session ending, but I don't think they will give them another 5 minutes. It's very unlikely with 45 seconds to go. I could be wrong, but if so, that means that Dan Rowbottom's lap was too late. He won't be in.
No, and also it's been disallowed anyway for track limits. So
right.
Double whammy. In fact, he's lost, yes, the lap. Stephen Jelly, the calls of the red flag, has managed to get the car going again, but you can see the damage he's done to it.
Yeah, a lot of damage. A lot of damage.
Right, so the track is clear, but we await news. There's no point running it for 45 seconds because that's not a lap time. So that's not worth running. Now it's up to the clerk, Ian Watson, whether he resets the clock for 5 minutes, which he is entitled to do, but he might say, well, no, we've got another 10 minutes anyway for the showdown, so we need to crack on with that. Let's wait and see. If the clock resets, then we will know. We shall find out. Rory Butcher the fastest from Ash Sutton, 38 thousandths between them. There will be some drivers very frustrated about that red flag. There'll be some very pleased about it.
Well, only if you were on a lap at that time, wasn't it? Because with 45 seconds, you wouldn't have had any time to start another lap, so it was literally only those on that lap.
Yeah, the drivers that will be pleased are those that are saved, because if now the session Q1 ends there, then they don't need to worry about trying to go faster again or have anybody better them. So Dan Camish, after the dramas, he'd just gone fastest, remember, has fallen to 17th. So he goes out, and Dan Rowbottom is 20th, so he's going to be another very frustrated driver. 5 minutes are on the clock. We are going to get 5 more minutes then. So the drivers, if they can, will go back out. This could be perhaps the most exciting bit now. Never mind Q2, Q1B is going to be really dramatic, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Because the track's getting quicker all the time. It really is. The difficulty is if you go with a brand new set of 4 tyres, to do a cross and do lap times on a front-wheel drive car is very difficult. It is possible, but you really do limit the number of laps you're going to get, whereas rear-wheel drive cars can go. Front-wheel drive cars, I think if they've got any heat in their rear tyres at all, will just elect for a pair of fronts. But look, they're getting ready for Rob Huff to have another go, that's for sure.
So this was, we saw it from on board Rory Butcher's Toyota, but the BMW of Stephen Jelley went around, big spin, and he found the hoarding and he found the tyre stack. So Stephen Jelley off the road. Right, the green flag already waved, so with the track clear, everybody now, mad scramble to get out. Those at the pit out end, like Team Hard, could be in the pound seats here.
Yeah, they get no garages, they have to work out in the rain, but there is an advantage.
Yes. They
are literally first ones out of the track. So good for them. It takes a good, minute or so for everyone else to get out. Huffy's actually leading them round. It will mean that he'll come round and catch some traffic coming out of the pit lane, but I think with everybody out on the track at the same time, bar Jelley and Camish, it's going to be busy anyway.
So Rob Huff, you're riding with the road much drier. He was really the first of the pioneers, wasn't he, to go onto slips, starting that trend, and other teams sending the cars out on track. Not everybody has gone back out, but Dan Camish's car still in the pit lane. Tom Ingram ready to go. Sutton is still in. So Sutton second, Ingram fourth, and Sutton does now venture out. So it doesn't look as though Camish's session is done.
Yeah, there must have been something a bit more damage than we realised, either an intercooler or something else underneath, because they clearly made the decision very quickly that it wasn't worth trying to repair that car.
And the potential now, 17th, is that he falls further before the end, because as it dries, people go faster. That's going to put him on the back foot, certainly for race 1. He's going to think about race 3 going into tomorrow. Right, this is Huff, so let's follow this lap. He's the first driver since the restart to be onto a proper flying lap. Not yet green by way of a sector, so the next lap perhaps is the one that's going to be really key. The nice thing, of course, about Knockhill, 1.2 miles and only 5 minutes, you do get a lot of laps in.
Yeah, you'll get a few laps in that time, which is the good thing. Lap time just 10 seconds virtual, 9 seconds under a minute, so you're going to get quite a few laps. But Huff is very neat and tidy through that chicane, isn't he? He's not really attacking the curbs at all.
So Huff goes through. Right, now we are getting improvements in sectors. Jake Hill being one of the drivers, Dan Rowbottom being another. 2 3/4 minutes and counting then. And this, just to reiterate Tim's point, is not for the grid. It is 11th and back, but this is 5 minutes to determine which 10 go into the top 10, which really matters.
Look, broken front splitter on Jake Hill's car. That's going to hurt him round here. So he must have been off somewhere and just dug the nose in somewhere a little bit to detach that. It's worked okay at the moment, and he goes third quickest with that lap.
So we're into the, 2 minutes and change bit. So yeah, as you say, Hill up to third. Right, we need a lap out of Rowbottom, don't we? Moffat's also improving in sectors. The thing is, everybody's going to be able to improve in a sector or 2 or 3 before the flag comes out. So again, it's a bit of a lottery, as we said it would be before the green lights went on at the very start. Rory Butcher, fastest thus far, out of the hairpin. He's only 38 thousandths up the road, and now Moffat goes quickest, and then he's then instantly beaten by Cook. What about Moffat? Comes up to the line. Sorry, what about Butcher? Comes up towards the line, down in the sector. So it is Cook fastest by 0.145 of a second. Cook, Moffat, Butcher, Sutton, Hill, Ingram, Turkington, Taylor Smith, Rowbottom, Lloyd is the top 10 at the moment.
Well, that just shows me that the track is definitely quicker now, because Moffat's come from a little way back to do that time, so anything could change.
Hill changes it because he goes fastest by 900ths of a second with an absolute best in the middle sector. And Dan Lloyd goes up to 5th, so Chilton 11th is the first one that misses out, and that is Rob Huff bouncing it over the curbs.
Yeah, Dan Lloyd had the fastest last sector on his last lap, so he's got his tyres well in up to speed, and a personal best for Lloyd in the start of the next sector. So there's lots of green personal bests in sector 1. They're all on flying laps right now.
So Josh Cook, quicker again last time, 51.429, goes back ahead of Jake Hill. Up towards the line goes Ricky Collard, and where does that lap put him? It puts him 12th, so he doesn't quite get into that top 10. Cook, Hill, Moffat, Butcher, Lloyd, Sutton, Ingram, Turkington, Taylor Smith, Rowbottom is the top 10. Rowbottom now vulnerable, 78,000 up on Chiltern. That's Adam Morgan going through. He's up to 9th. That pushes Rowbottom out of the top 10.
Yeah, so Rowbottom 11th now. He really needs to find a lap in this last 20 seconds.
He does indeed, but so also do Chiltern, Collard, Watson, Pearson, Jelly, et al. Behind. Ash Sutton's now 3rd. He's just improved. Dan Camish falls to 23rd. As now Sam Osborne goes up to 16th. That is Rowbottom, and it's going to be the checkered flag this time. Clock has hit 0, so Rowbottom is down in the sectors with that damage, and so he's not going to get in unless somebody loses a time and promotes him. And Rob Huff has lost a lap time. Where is Huff in the order? Can you believe it? 21st in the end after all the heroics.
Well, that's incredible. Yeah, and Rowbottom crossed the line and did not get himself in. He's 13th. He did not get in the top 10. Man was on pole for the very first race. He was on the front row last time out at Croft. Doesn't make it into the top 10.
Josh Cook's had his lap time taken off him, so Jake Hill is the fastest in Q1 provisionally. This is Aaron Taylor-Smith for Power Max Racing coming down now towards the hairpin. And Aaron Taylor-Smith, no, he's been down in the sectors, yellow, so no improvement there. Jake Hill has now had a lap time taken off him for track limit offences, so it's all got to shuffle out. Taylor Smith doesn't go any faster, goes over the line. And so at the end of all of that, Hill, Cook, Sutton, Ingram, Moffat, Butcher, Lloyd, Chiltern, Turkington, Morgan, the top 10.
Yeah, so Ricky Collard didn't make it either. No. He was 11th, the last man not to make it. He will start 11th tomorrow. Behind him, 11th onward grid position set, so it'll be Collard, Taylor-Smith, Rowbottom, Pearson, Watson, Osborne, Gamble, Jelly, Edwards and Huff 20th. The top 10 will all have to fight it out again for the top 10 grid positions.
So fascinating, as we expected it to be. And at the end of Q1, Jake Hill the fastest then, 51.535 being the lap time. So that counts for nothing other than making sure he's through. You don't count either your Q1 or Q2 lap time, it's only what you do in the showdown. Those top 10.
And ironic that both Hill and Cook lost lap times, didn't they, for track limits, but it doesn't matter at all, doesn't count for anything.
So a bit of sweeping up for the marshals to do after the rally crossing that went on from Camish and Jelly and others.
The two top championship protagonists, safety through, Sutton 3rd and Ingram 4th. They remain as closely matched as ever. Just 1/1000th of a second between Sutton and Ingram on their lap times.
And Dan Rowbottom will be a frustrated 13th. Let's see whether Louise can force a smile out of Dan Rowbottom at the end of that session. Lou.
Yeah, this is, Dan, one of those moments when you don't really want to see me, but frustrating session for you.
I don't think that's fair. I always want to see you. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, the problem is this place it's a tight circuit, right? So you've all got to pay attention, and the same driver keeps stopping. He's not quick enough. He can't get hit in the tyres. That's fine, but look in the mirror and get out of the way. I mean, I drove into the back of this guy in the middle of the chicane, smashed the front end in, and then I don't know what happened on the last lap. Watson and Creasy are having a fight in qualifying, and it just, it's just messy, really messy. But ultimately, not really want to be out of the top 10 shootout. It's not quite the 1, 2, 3 of Croft, but it looks like it's all down to Ash.
I thought maybe, well, you probably thought as well you're going to have a last chance at it with that extra five minutes added on, but obviously too much damage done to your car by that point.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously improved in that last 5-minute run, and we needed another lap. Obviously the track gets quicker, the tyres get quicker, a little bit more confidence in me, and ultimately, I just didn't quite pull a lap early enough. We came in the middle of the first run for more fronts, and it put us out of sync. We had a really good rhythm initially, we had loads of space, and when we came in and pitted for the tyres, in hindsight, the performance we got in the tyres, we ended up in the traffic, so actually we probably did ourselves a bad turn there, but ultimately this is what you go touring car race for, isn't it? The good and the low.
Bad luck. Hopefully there'll be more good tomorrow.
Thank you.
So Dan Rowbottom being optimistic, being as positive as he can be, but will be frustrated. Not as frustrated as Dan Camish, so Robo 13th, Dan Cam 23rd.
Yeah, so after, as I said, the heroics of Croft, 1, 2, 3 on the grid, we've actually ended up with just Sutton in the top 10.
So the order at the end of Q1, Hill, Cook, Sutton, Ingram, Moffat, Butcher, Lloyd, Chilton, Turkington, Morgan. They are the 10 that go through, and of course for them it becomes a relatively clear circuit. The rest of the grid is going to look like this. Ricky Collard for 11th, ahead of Aaron Taylor-Smith and then Dan Rowbottom. Ronan Pearson 14th from Andrew Watson, then Sam Osborne, George Gamble, Stephen Jelly, Jade Edwards ahead of Rob Huff. 21st, Dexter Patterson, then Mikey Doble, Dan Camish 23rd from Jack Butel, Michael Crease, Nick Halstead and Darryl DeLee on 27th. So the Marshals finding bits of car to take away. That's a bit of a BMW, I think. After Stephen Jelly's off.
Yeah, I guess it must be.
Because Dan Camish was on this side of the road, and that's come from where Jelly had his dramas.
So that looks repairable. West Surrey Racing will knock that into shape, I'm absolutely sure. But it just shows how much damage it gets done to the underneath these cars. But the circuit is so that the grass is very damp, it's bumpy, that's inevitable.
Rory Butcher there talking to Jack Coker, his engineer, who leans in. Jack having taken over responsibility from Croft onwards of engineering Rory's car, and looking pretty decent in that earlier session. Of course, if anybody knows their way around here, it is Rory Butcher. That's Aidan Moffat, who again is looking to see what he can do in this second part of qualifying. Jade Edwards won't be in it, but not a bad effort, and was looking very good for a time as the road was drying out. And Jade happy to be back with One Motorsport.
Yeah, two Scotsmen in the top 10, so something for the crowd to cheer on for sure. No Gordon Shedden this year, sadly, but as with 4 Scottish drivers, I'm sure they'll be all rooting for Aidan Moffat and Rory Butcher in this next session, and indeed tomorrow.
And Aidan Moffat then good to go as we await the countdown for 10 more minutes of this session. So we've had the drama of a 5-minute blast, now 10 minutes. All of this just to sort out how they start for the first race, and then of course the results of that, the grid for race 2, and then you get the semi-reverse grid for race 3. So for some of the teams, for some of the drivers, work done. They can go off and look at data or contemplate being involved in the kart event later on in the day that Nick Halstead is a great champion of, and looking after these things to get the drivers and fans acting together, and some of the drivers will be doing that. But 10 minutes for Q2 underway. Aidan Moffat, Josh Cook down the pit lane. So the One Motorsport Hondas blast down the pit road. And
yeah, I've been thinking about this in general because it all happens so fast in this session that we don't always pick up the pole lap. I'd actually like to see a 1-lap shootout. Literally, the car goes out, does 1 warm-up lap and does a flyer. I think that would be really good for TV and for the drivers. I guess the argument against it is, well, it wouldn't be fair on the front-wheel drive cars of getting their rears up to temperature, and they'd have to be aware of doing that because there's got front rear-wheel drive differences, but I think it would make great TV. Discuss.
Might not be great for the timetable because it might take a bit longer.
Yeah, but you can have the next car running on his out lap when the other's doing his time lap. It works successfully in other championships.
And of course, going back to Super Touring days, there was that one-shot showdown, wasn't there? It was a single lap qualifying in days of yore.
Yeah.
Right, Jake Hill then on track.
Have they managed to secure that front splitter a little bit better in this little interim period?
Yes, I think. Doesn't look quite as flappy, does it?
No, it's not up to speed yet, but I'm sure they've thrown a few self-tappers in there and done the best they can.
Sounds like a folk band, the self-tappers. Up towards the timing line, weaving around to get some warmth into the Goodyear rubber. Ash Sutton ahead of Jake Hill. So Ash Sutton goes through, looking for an 11th career pole position. Aidan Moffat looking for a second. And for the John Cleland Award, a Scottish driver, it wouldn't be a bad thing. So Aidan would quite like to be the first winner of that. There is Josh Cook, who is also looking for pole position. And Colin Turkington, he used to be an instructor up here, didn't he? He's in this top 10 showdown as well.
Yeah, only just got in, though, in 9th place, so it was close, but he managed to get in. That's all that matters at this point.
And Dan Lloyd perhaps is the one that deserves a hat tip, because as we were getting excited about others, he crept in, and so did Tom Chilton, winner of that wet race at Donington back at the start of the year. So now then, we're already with only 7 3/4 minutes of Q2 to go. And Dan Lloyd, with 2 absolute bests in the sectors, could well be the man that puts the Team Hard Cooper at the top of the times. All the attention has been around Rob Huff, but yet Dan Lloyd is the man that's in that top 10.
Yeah, but he's also very experienced, Dan, and you know, as we heard with Rowbottom, getting the conditions and the traffic and the tyres right was not an easy task, and those with the experience are probably the ones that pulled it off best. Well, that looked like another big clod of earth on the track there. I'm not sure if someone's been off already. But it did look like it. Now, is this Chilton doing a tyre swap? It looks like it is, front to back, with only 7 minutes to go, but he's obviously gone with a new set.
Dan Lloyd's time was a 52.8, and Aidan Moffat should be able to go quicker than that, because he's done 2 absolute best, and he does a 51.667. Now, fastest in Q1 was a 51.5, so that's the target.
Yeah, but again, the conditions have got a little bit drier just since then. So that's not a good curve to hit that one, because you lose drive off the corner. But he's look how he just takes all of that curve on the right. That is clearly the line you need to take.
So into Clark's he comes and rides the curve, fights the car a little bit.
Possibility of track limits there, but difficult to tell from the onboard camera angle, but he was certainly very wide, wasn't he, at that point? Absolute best in Sector 2, personal best in Sector 1, so this is going to be quicker again for Aidan Moffat.
Right, Josh Cook has done absolute bests as Moffat comes up towards the timing line, and that lap is a 51.599. What about Cook? This should be good behind him. Does it put him ahead of Moffat? The answer is yes, it does. 51.508. That's the best lap of the day, then quicker than Jake Hill went in Q1. And then Ash Sutton goes even faster, 51.324, quicker by 0.184 of a second.
The quickest lap we've seen so far, and nearly 2/10 quicker than Cook. So that was a big lap from Sutton with 2 absolute bests in the second and third sectors. And no, he's backed off.
Yeah.
He's backed off.
He's had 1 roll of the dice, and we're almost at the halfway point of Q2. So Adam Morgan has had a lap time disallowed. So I've got another piece of paper now. Q2 track limits to start.
But I do think they're all half mindful that the track is going to be at its absolute best in the very last few minutes, isn't it?
Yeah. Right, this is Ingram's first effort, and he's done an absolute best within Sector 1. So the road being drier and drier and drier. The man with that gold number plate as the reigning champion comes down towards the hairpin, lifts the inside rear wheel as he loads the car up. Jake Hill is ahead of him, and now Tingram fires it up towards the line. Morgan goes 4th, incidentally, and Turkington goes 5th. Ingram 10th at the start of the lap, is 4th by the end of it. Sutton, Cook, Moffat, Ingram, Morgan is the top 5.
Looked like Ingram was a little bit wide on the last corner, a little bit deep into the hairpin, which compromised his exit by running onto the damper part of the track.
So Josh Cook is coming now down towards the hairpin. Rory Butcher has just gone 4th. They're trying to work out who's going to be the last driver in the session to cross the line, because that could be the golden ticket.
But the man who's keeping his powder dry at the moment is Jake Hill. He's slowest at the moment. He has absolutely been waiting for the track to get a little bit better before he really pushes. Maybe he's been bringing in a new set of tyres. Tyres aren't unlimited, remember. They only have a limited number of tyres. And he's perhaps been waiting till now to absolutely push the remaining 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
So Josh Cook the fastest by 51 thousandths of a second. Rory Butcher's lost a lap. So Cook, Sutton, Moffat, Butcher, Hill, the top 5 at the moment. Jake Hill now has a lap time taken off him as the road dries, of course, so they push even more and run that risk of track limit offences. Oh, so close to the tyre stack, way up onto 2 wheels, but Jake hangs onto it in an increasingly grubby BMW.
But he was over the track limits there. He needs to watch himself over that chicane. He's running over the painted curb section on the exit.
Now Ingram has done an absolute best Sector 1. He's currently 8th as he comes down towards the hairpin, but his 4th lap of the session has been disallowed. That was the last one, so this one I think he's going to be okay. Here comes Ingram then, down a bit in the middle sector, heads up towards the line. Sutton behind him.
He got a much better exit that time from the hairpin as well.
Goes third. Tom Ingram goes third fastest. So Cook, Sutton, Ingram, Moffat, Butcher, Hill, Morgan, Chilton, Turkington, Lloyd is the top 10. And Butcher's had another lap taken off him by the look of it. Right, so Tom Ingram third. There is Rory Butcher going through. No, that message has gone away, so ignore it about Butcher. But Morgan has just lost yet another lap. And 7th fastest he is. That's Colin Turkington, who's just quietly getting on with the job. 9th. Now we know he leaves it late, and this is sort of late. 2 minutes and change on the clock, and he's done 2 personal bests.
Yeah, no surprise there. He's just brought his tyres in for the last 3 minutes. He will be absolutely pushing now for sure for the remaining couple of laps. Very neat and tidy. Where's he going to come across the line this time? And he moves up to 8th.
Yeah, indeed. So it was a better lap time. Butcher's now lost another lap, but Turkington has got more to come, hasn't he? Now, who else is out there looking quick? Because there's time for this lap and one more.
Well, Turkington looked like he was on it that lap. The car looked hooked up. It looked like it was working well. Sutton always has an opportunity to go quicker, for sure. I believe Turkington may have been off.
Yeah, it looks like he was recovering, didn't it, there?
So he was pushing a bit too hard, but that could really hurt him now if he's got dirt on his tyres, because he hasn't got time to clean them up.
Right, that is Ash Sutton dancing.
Couldn't be anyone else.
No, don't know why I paused. But Ash Sutton presses on. Now, this lap was an improvement in Sector 1, but down in Sector 2. Gets himself ahead of Jake Hill. Sutton is still attacking then. So what can he do? Third fastest currently. He has got to find 52 thousandths to go to the top of the times. And as he comes up towards the line, let's see what the lap time is going to be. Goes fastest. Ash Sutton does a 51.267, the best lap of the day. So the fastest lap of the day for Ash Sutton, puts into the top. Into the pit lane comes Dan Lloyd. I think 10th is as good as it's going to get for Dan, so that's the end of his session.
Well, just when we thought maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't get another Napa Racing pole. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Did that ever work for him? Because he carried so much speed through there and didn't run wide on the exit. That was, that was close to, that was very close to track limits. What's the time been? It's been a personal best again in Sector 1.
Not for Sutton, though, I'm afraid. He's slightly down. This is Colin Turkington, who has improved in sectors 1 and 2, but stays 8, so it's not happening for Colin. He's got one more chance at this. Sutton's lap is not going to be an improvement. He's got one more roll of the dice, but he's the fastest by 6 thousandths of a second as Jake Hill goes across the line. He doesn't improve. He's got one more lap as well.
Yeah, could be. Hill could put. Morgan moves up. Morgan gets up to 6th. So Turkington is the slowest of the BMWs in this final section at the moment.
Yeah, and he's not improved in the first sector. That's Hill trying to be Ash Sutton, and it worked for him as well, way up onto 2 wheels. But for Jake Hill, not an improvement in the first sector. So the acrobatics are there, but the times aren't, and he's sideways coming out of Clark's. It's great to watch this lap, but nobody now is going green.
No, I wonder if they've just had the best of their tyres. I think they probably shot the bolt a little too early on the tyres. Maybe worried about track conditions or rain or something coming. Clearly weren't listening to my weather forecast. But this is the last roll of the dice. The flag is out. Sutton's taken and Hill hasn't done it. I think that's going to be it. It's going to be another pole position for Napa Racing and Ash Sutton.
So the 100% record for the team continues. This is Colin Turkington. We thought he'd been off the road. He hit the chicane curb and that really unsettled the car, and off the road he rattled.
But did you see he actually hit the top of the curb? He didn't straddle it. He actually half committed, hit the top of it, the highest point of it, and that sent him wide. If you're going to attack it, you've got to attack it and really traverse the high point of the curb.
And that is Aidan Moffat arriving backwards, nails the car coming out the other side. This was on board.
Well, I think he was a little bit wide on the entry, got his rear on the wet part of the track and managed to save it. But congratulations once again to Ash Sutton.
Just out of interest, Jake Hill ending 3rd. He had 2 successive lap times taken away for track limits, but they didn't affect things because he wasn't improving on them, so he was still 3rd. But Ash Sutton, he's always a joy to watch, but there, people might say, oh, he's pole again, yet another Napa pole position. It's only 6,000ths of a second. That's how close it was.
Yeah, from his old nemesis Josh and friend Josh Cook. Here's your top 10 showdown.
Ash Sutton takes pole position for the 11th time in his career. Josh Cook second ahead of Jake Hill. Rory Butcher fourth ahead of Tom Ingram and then Adam Morgan. It's Aidan Moffat seventh, Colin Turkington eighth, ninth Tom Chilton. And to round out the top 10, it is Dan Lloyd. And that is a fourth pole of the year for Ash Sutton. So Colin Turkington will be a little bit frustrated with only eighth. And Ash Sutton the fastest at the end of a fantastic qualifying session with so much going on. Josh Cook narrowly beaten, 6,000ths of a second, the margin. The cars have to go through that technical check first before they're released to the teams. So we might not yet be able to get Ash Sutton because he's in the technical area. And the rest of the teams, in some cases happy, in other cases very frustrated, but it doesn't half ramp up the pressure because, as we often say, with the sheer weight of numbers, you know, you've got so many good drivers in the championship, they can't all be in there.
But you know, Knockhill is always a place that can catch you out. It's a track that you need to not make mistakes on. You can lose a lot of points here if you don't get it right. But with more reaction from the pit lane, Louise is with Josh Cook.
Yeah, we're still waiting for Ash to come through the technical check. So I thought I'd grab a word with the man who's going to be starting alongside him on the front row. Josh, that's a good result for you.
Yeah, almost a really good one. No, it was good. Yeah, had no idea what to expect. Obviously, the first time we were driven the car and the driver was in that quali session. So yeah, it was good. Pleased with the progress that we've made, but it doesn't count to anything unless we can convert it tomorrow. And obviously, we're around the guys that fight for the championship. You know, I'm sure they've got minds on the points they need to score, but we're here for the big win, so see what we can do tomorrow.
How tricky was that session to manage?
That's fine. No, it was horrible. You've got to make a call to go onto the slicks at the right time, and you've either got to get it absolutely bang on right, and nobody sort of really notices, or you jump too soon and you look like a bit of an idiot. So. Made the right call, I think, about sort of the right time. Maybe could have gone a lap earlier, just to get us through into the shootout. But what a mate! But really didn't know what to expect in that final run. So just really pleased for the team. You know, it's been a long year. So to get a decent qualifying like that really sets us up for a good weekend.
Good stuff. We'll see you out there tomorrow. Right, I'll throw it back to you guys. I'm going to take a little jog down the pit lane, go and find Ash, so I'll let you know when I've got him.
Excellent, Louise. Thanks very much. Yes, Ash Sutton is back at the team and, as you might expect, is delighted. A very, very happy man indeed with yet another pole position. We'll hear from him in a few moments' time. And in the end, the only one of the Napa Ford drivers to make it through. Dad's very happy. Engineer Tony Carrozza is very happy. And he will, once he's done all the photographs, be able to tell all about that session as the circuit continues to drive. More support race action to come. Looking forward to a great day of racing tomorrow because, again, although the weather tomorrow is meant to be better than today, there is still the forecast of a bit of rain, so that's going to throw another variable in tomorrow. Right, he's done it again, and Napa Racing 100% pole rate continues. And this time, Louise, it's thanks to Ash Sutton.
Yeah, the man who said to me earlier on today, nah, we're never going to get this pole, it's going to be a real struggle, but you did it. And how much of a struggle was it?
I'm out of breath. If you give me a couple of minutes. It was a struggle, it was a push. Hybrid around here is such a big difference, especially off the low-speed hairpin and stuff, and onto the back straight. I just literally, you watched the onboard lap, the through chicane, it was a complete opposite lock, normal Ash Sutton on the limit job. But yeah, we've had a bit of a rough day, to be fair. We had a damper issue in FP2, which kind of limited our running. We've actually only done two push laps, and to roll it out in qualifying, we were quickest in the wet when we were all on the wet tyre, but the pressure was on when the slicks come out. But this car's phenomenal on the soft, and I just had to dig deep, and I did exactly that.
It was a phenomenal lap, but given all of that, is there an element of surprise that you got the pole without being disrespectful? But you know what I mean, because you weren't thinking this was going to fall your way, were you?
Yeah, you'd expect Jake to be on pole, or at least Turkington. They've got a little bit more hybrid than me. In a rear-wheel drive car, there's definitely an advantage. Obviously, Josh has got a chunk of hybrid, which helps. So, yeah, you come here, you kind of think, oh, I'll be happy with sort of second or third row, but to roll it out and get on the front. That's a mega job. Just need to get off the line now.
Well done. Great stuff. Well done you. Right, let's go and find Jake Hill. Is he around? Yeah, he's just cuddling the team over here. So let's see if we can dive straight in with him, see if he can get his helmet off, see how quickly he can get his helmet off. Jake, congratulations from team members. How happy were you with that lap?
Not particularly, but I mean, we're through, you know, when it all looked like it was over, you know. I lobbed it off in the end of my first run in Q1 and just went bouncing across the grass at turn 1, you know, it was so easy to do. And yeah, I thought that was it, to be honest, because obviously it ripped the floor off, done a fair amount of damage, but luckily the front bumper was good enough that it had something to bolt back to again, you know. But yeah, you know, at least we got third, that's decent. I'm just gutted I couldn't quite get that pole, because I think we're definitely fast enough.
It looked as though you guys were kind of trying to really carefully manage how you brought your tyres in that final shootout, but it didn't quite go the way that you wanted it to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got the tyres in, Lou, to be fair. It's just, you know, the track was just awfully green, and after all the rain, and lots of stuff had been brought on through no thanks to myself and a few others, obviously, just bringing rubbish onto the track. So it's hard work, you know, and yeah, it's just the first time we've driven around the dry this weekend in qualifying when you have to go for it. And yeah, you know, I got a couple of bits wrong myself, and there's a couple of bits we definitely could have done to improve the car, but it's the same throughout the grid, you know. So, but I'm happy. At least we're up there, and we get to go and fight that lot again for another win.
What are your thoughts looking ahead tomorrow? Because I think we're looking at, theoretically speaking, slightly nicer weather conditions. This is a track where you had, particularly last year, had a brilliant time. So.
Yeah, we had a fantastic year last year, you know, a win in 2 seconds, and it'd be nice to replicate that, but ultimately we're in a good, strong position now, and it's just go out and just try and have a good day. You know, if we can have a couple of podiums, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? You know, so we just got to do everything we can do. We can't control the guys that are on pole, you know, they're just super fast this year, and yeah, you can only manage your own race, I think.
See you out there.
Absolutely.
Back to you guys.
Thanks, Louise. Good to hear then from our top 3 drivers, and an excellent qualifying session. This top 10 showdown, introduced at a number of the events this year, has been a big hit, given us lots of drama, and it also sets us up nicely for what promises to be, as ever, 3 fascinating races tomorrow, especially if the weather gods have a trick or 2 up their sleeves. We're going to be on air on ITV4 from 11:15 tomorrow with all of the touring car action, all of the build-up, plus, of course, the majority of that support race programme. It promises to be, as ever, from Knockhill, a very spectacular day of racing. Join us tomorrow if you can. For now, from an ever-drying and now sunny Knockhill, from Louise Goodman, Tim Harvey and David Addison, it's goodbye.